Guys, welcome back to Decoding Babylon, and I got my bro back. Demon Racers is back. What's going on, Bryan? It's been a while.
I know. It's been so many things going on. I've been so busy with all of our projects, and you've been on podcasts, I've been on podcasts, so hey, let's get back to our own.
I know. There's something comfortable about being in the Decoding Babylon studio, even though we're about 3,000 miles apart.
Quite a distance. We're together in heart.
Yeah, always together. It's like Paul when he talks about he's there with them in spirit. So
yes.
But yeah, Bryan.
Sweet.
Let's talk about it a little bit. Obviously, we released Ancient Angels about a month ago now, and it's doing fairly well. Obviously, people like it.
It's doing great.
People love it, of course, and of course they're asking, when are we doing more? And I guess that's the question. When are we doing more?
You know, I have a few things planned, but I think the next series is going to be trying to get on Netflix, really. So that's the next plan.
That's big.
We might have a little extra that we might add to this series, but I've already been in talks with somebody over at Netflix, so we'll see how that goes. And there's going to be even more. A lot more in-depth stuff talking about things.
Well, it's so cool, and it's like, so yeah, like as Bryan was saying, I've been doing the podcast circuit trying to promote the movie, and it's obviously, if you've seen any of my reels, obviously I advertise it in every reel almost, because it's funny because it's like even without thinking about it. I just did a reel yesterday about Dazed Confused, which is insane, because why would that be related to Ancient Angels? but somehow that thing's in there, because you have the stoner talking about the George Washington and the founders of our country were in a cult, and the cult was into aliens. And you're like, and okay, so I'm like thinking, like, what could he mean unless he's talking about the cult being Freemasonry, and the aliens he's talking about are Anunnaki. They're these fallen angels. They're these beings that came down from from Nibiru. Obviously, we don't believe that part. Yep. But they came down and they messed with man's genetics, and they gave man technology. Wow, where have you heard that story before?
I don't know. Could it be the Bible? Could it be the Book of Enoch? I mean, that's an interesting one.
Absolutely, and it's funny. Like, that's what we can keep on talking about, like the mythologies, and just because it's a myth doesn't mean it's not true. And that's where you get into like. This story, again, guys, like, obviously you Bible believers, and obviously the ones who are like on the same page as us, you understand this is the truth. But it's crazy for somebody, like, as we were talking about before we got on here, that I still have people trying to argue with me about Genesis 6 and saying, oh, the sons of God are actually the sons of Seth. And you're like, do you understand that this story isn't just in the Bible? This story is all around the world. It's a repeating story.
Everything.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's like, but some people are still trying to hold to this one view of, now that's too weird. It's too weird that angels came down, had sex with women, created a race of giants. Guys, that is what your Bible says.
And that's in every culture, like every single culture. And it's maddening because so many Christian people don't want to believe it, because they think they're caught up in the physicality of this world. Okay, you're caught up in the idea that you think this world is so tangible, what's in front of you, that you don't believe in the things that once were, that could possibly be a different reality that you're living in now. They don't believe in that. And they don't even believe in the spiritual world, let alone the spiritual world that Paul talks about. He talks about being sensitive to the spirit. Okay, sensitive in the spirit. You got to like pay attention to even recognize the spiritual world, because we don't perceive it, let alone things that once were. Like, I mean, it seems absurd, because like We've got history in every culture telling you that there was these race of giant superhuman beings that were gods that took over the world. And it's in all the cultures. What, you think everybody was equally making up this fake story and then it's smeared in your Bible?
Yes.
But you deny it and you try to say it's sons of Seth. And it's straight up, it's in there. It's in your biblical account, straight up in your face.
Yeah, it's interesting that the people who would call us out for saying, don't talk about the book of Enoch, they'll say, no, it's actually talking about the sons of Seth. It's like, do you know what it says about adding to Scripture? It's like, if it wanted to say sons of Seth, it would. It does not say sons of Seth. It says sons of God. And again, like, so we can obviously, we go through the proof of this. Obviously, if you look at the sons of God, as they're written in the Old Testament, they're always referring to heavenly beings. And it's so easy, it's so clear. I obviously jump right over to the book of Job. And the book of Job is like, the sons of God present themselves before God, and Satan's with them. And obviously he's like, what are you doing? I've been going up and inside it, like up and down the earth, inside it, up in here, and back and forth to heaven. Obviously, this Satan character he's talking about, he could literally be talking about the literal devil. He could be talking about a different accuser, but neither here nor there. It's clearly talking about spiritual beings, because later in the book of Job, it also talks about, I bring this up all the time, the sons of God shouted for joy when God laid the foundations of the earth. So again, they weren't here when God was laying, the people were not here when God was laying the foundations of the earth. That seems kind of obvious, but to some, they're clinging to this view of, it's like, I was on Jenny Meyer's podcast. You guys, if you don't follow Jenny Meyer, she's got the Rooted Truth podcast. Bryan was on there as well. And we were both talking about this, and it's like, again, you have to believe some pretty outlandish things to be a Christian. I mean, just that there's like, to be able to call yourself a follower of Christ, you have to believe that God sent his son as a man to a virgin, to be born from a virgin, and then live a destitute life, and then be tortured to death, and then rise again 3 days later, and then ascend into heaven, and then it's going to come back one day. Okay, so but you believe that, but you don't believe that angels could impregnate a woman, but you believe that the Holy Spirit could. Okay, so people wonder how a spirit could impregnate a woman. It's like, you already believe that.
It's already there. It's already there.
You already claim to believe that. And what I was saying to Jenny Meyer, I was saying, I believe this is what it is. And I think that we're getting to a point where obviously some of us are reading the scriptures and we're taking a lot of things that are literal to be literal. And there's certain things that are socially acceptable to believe without being called crazy, like obviously believing in Jesus. But there's a lot of things in the Bible. It's almost like I see so much of this in the conspiracy or the truther world, where it's like, well, if you say you believe that, they're not going to take these other conspiracies seriously. It's like, I don't care. It only matters if it's true. If it's true, it's the only thing that matters. And if they don't believe this other thing because you believe this other thing, that is between them and God. It's not between you and them. You need to just be like, take what God says seriously, believe it,
speak the truth,
or don't.
Yep, speak the truth, no matter what it is, at what cost it is. And it's like, the thing is understanding the fallen angels and understanding the Nephilim, pertinent to your salvation. Like, the reality is, it's not, but in some aspect, there's a lot that it shifts in your understanding, and it makes a lot of things more questionable, I would say. And you won't be very, very effective or do a very good job at witnessing to non-Christians if you don't understand this stuff. I talk to non-Christians all day. I just talk to them for a few minutes and immediately they're like, wow, I believe in the Bible now. Cause I'm like, oh yeah, you think that's George Washington? Oh, no. Let me show you. That's Zeus. Check this out. Why would you think it's Zeus? You think Zeus is a god? No, he's a fallen angel. He's a Nephilim. He's a hybrid. It's talked about in the Bible. Like, what do you think the dollar bill is? He's got eagle on it. The eagle is Zeus. Like, what do you think the pyramids are? We're not a colony of Egypt. Why is it unfinished? It's an unfinished pyramid because it's the Tower of Babel, bro. Like, I just talked to people. I just got done talking to somebody. A few minutes at the end, he was just like, went from like, oh, the Bible's blah, 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 to all of a sudden, okay, I think I need to go home and rethink my life. It's comical because it's like, if you know the truth of what's being presented, these lies, you can expose it. And when you expose it, it opens people's eyes. So like understanding these things is not pertinent to salvation, but it's a whole lot faster than trying to be, this Christian that doesn't know anything, but you're just like, oh, be nice to people. And it's like, you don't even believe in the power of God. You don't even believe in healing. You don't even believe in casting out of demons. You don't even believe demons are real.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't even believe demons are real, like, I mean, what good is your religion?
Well,
like, I mean, like Jesus came through and healed people and cast out demons. That was so evident about what he did.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, okay, cool. Like, he showed up with power. He showed up with authority. He showed up with like, and telling us the things to come, showing up with the future, and it was like, he did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So these are things that we're supposed to walk around with and have. So understanding some of this stuff, helps create that connection and that sound mind, I think, in some way, realistically. I don't know.
No, I think a couple of things you said obviously really struck me was like that when, again, it's like, is it a salvation issue? It's like, obviously we can, even Bryan and I have disagreements about some of the texts as far as interpretations of it. But the one thing is, obviously, I would never deny about Bryan is, obviously I know he believes what the scripture says. Obviously you can have different takes on it. But when you get so radically off what the text says, and you're trying to really fit that square peg in that round hole, it's like, okay, so we're just talking about one example. But like, if you don't understand that there was giants in the promised land that had to be killed, and these giants were not normal people.
Yes.
They were not normal people. Well, obviously you have a different view of how the Old Testament is written, because
you have a different view of God. You think God's a genocidal maniac.
Right.
That's what you think.
Lots of people believe that the God of the Old Testament is different than the God of the New Testament because they think that he obviously is all about fire and judgment, when it's like,
yes,
you don't understand where it's like, it's obviously men's rebellion. It's that obviously, again, brought about the Nephilim again. It's like, it's in this obviously worship of the Nephilim and fallen angels. It's like, so obviously God wouldn't be good if he didn't punish the wicked at some point. It's like, it's so funny when people say like, oh, God is a genocidal maniac. It's like,
he's just.
It's like, who does he think he is? God? Yes, God gets to decide who lives and dies. I'd gladly put that in his hands over anybody else. Yeah, that's obviously, being a Christian is, we know he's good. But I know what Bryan was saying was good. What you're saying, like it's like the Spirit kind of like reveals things to us, and it's so funny. And I'm sure, like, when you're talking to people who obviously the Father is drawing them to Jesus, and you start telling them, do you know that the Greek gods are like, those stories are not just completely make believe? I guess because obviously I speak for myself, that I inherently knew they have to be more than just tall tales that are just completely made up. Because I think we all realize,
because they're reiterating,
like, why would it still, like I said, why would these stories still resonate today if they didn't come from a true place? And like I said, as Christians, we can honestly say, and obviously Bryan and I go through it in Ancient Angels about the Greek cover-up, where the Greek tries to co-opt parts of the truth, and that's why. So you kind of like, it gets all mixed up, where you think like, oh well, the Greeks told that story too. It's like, the Greeks are so much later telling those stories about the Greek mythology than the biblical prophets, the things that happen in Genesis 6. I mean, they're so far removed from that stuff. So no, they copied what the truth was. But I think that at the end of the day, it's like, this does actually give you an explanation for, like when Peter says, always be ready to defend your faith, the reason for how you believe. And when somebody tries to say, oh, all the religions are the same, they all copy off the same story, it's like, yes, they do. They copy off our story, the real story, the true story. And obviously the devil tries to twist things and make it confusing. But I mean, I think that obviously, like, this is like a sweater that we're pulling at the thread of. It's never going to basically stop. But at the same time, I think Bryan and I have done a pretty good job of putting the kind of overall structure together, where it's like, this world finally makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because it's like when you think about the character of God, a lot of people, it says in the end times that people will have a form of godliness, but deny what? Deny the power, right? That's the world we're living in right now. People have a form of godliness, but they deny the power of God. What's the power? What is the power? The power is is the authority. Jesus said, if I cast out demons by the finger of God, that you know that the kingdom of God has already come. It has come upon you. It's already here, right? So that's the power to cast out demons, the power to heal the sick, the power to raise the dead. These things go on. Like, this is the power of God. And so, like, we're walking in an age now where everybody's denying the power. They're not just denying the power, they're denying the character of God, they're denying parts of God, they're denying so much more than the power. And a lot of it stems from this false understanding that they think that God was, you know, this mean character of God, of who he was in the Old Testament, because they don't understand why he was actually having the Israelites wipe out these people. I wouldn't even call them people because they weren't fully human. Why God was having wiped these individuals out, these entities out, you know, like, and when you understand that, you realize, like, God actually loves humans. He's always loved humans. He's always cared for humans. He has always been merciless or had mercy for us in everything. And it's like he's always had the character of love for us. And you know, but when you don't understand this biblical text, you don't understand the character of God. Guess what? If you don't understand the character of God, what makes you think he's going to use you? Let me ask you that question. You don't even know God. You don't even know his character. What makes you think you're going to be able to pray, put your hands on people and watch them get healed? So of course the Christians are going to come up with some justification of, like, healing doesn't really happen these days. Dude, I just prayed for some dude that had freaking cancer. Okay. Like, and he got healed. So, like, this is not like, God. This is my everyday. This is my everyday normalness. And it's like people don't understand. They think, oh, they have to justify because they think that God didn't actually mean that. So really, God meant, you know, God's healing people in hospitals. That's how people are getting healed when Jesus said, you will do these things in greater. That's how people are getting healed. Right. It wasn't just like, you know, oh, he was. It's not meant for these days. It wasn't meant for him putting his hands on people. Like, this is not meant. And you deny so much. You just keep denying. You have to keep denying. You have to keep denying. Keep denying. Or maybe you're wrong. Yeah. Maybe the Bible's literal. Maybe it's telling you things that's saying, hey, go put your hands on sick people and they will recover. Maybe the Bible says sons of God. It's talking so that you understand the character of God. Because if you start to understand the character of God and who he is, he's going to move through you more. He's going to love through you more. You're going to understand he's operating in love always. He's always been operating in love. Yeah. Okay. And it's been expunging the wickedness of the fallen angels, of Satan's plans to distort and pervert the image of God and his genetics, his perfect genetics that he was making you in. That's why Jesus is called the Son of God. That's why he's called Son of Man also. Yeah. Right? Yeah. He's called Son of Man. Yeah, he's the son of, what is Son of Man? He's the Son of Man because he was human. He was born of Mary. He's a human. Yeah. He was born of the human lineage. That's why his lineage was so important. Guys, like, everything about Jesus, lineage, the understanding of Jesus' lineage. Why was it so important to make sure that he came from this line, from this line, from this line? Because this line was human. It was Son of Man.
Isn't it interesting, too, that, like, the people who deny the Son of God interpretation of being angelic, it's like, don't you know that that's one of the reasons they crucified Jesus is because he was saying he was the Son of God? It's like, so like the people with the Son of Seth interpretation would say, well, we're all sons of God, really? No, you're not. Not everybody is a son of God. And I would try to tell this everybody. Like, when they talk about you can be a son of God or considered a son of God through Jesus. Through it, like, it's like you share in his inheritance, but no, we are not sons of God unless we're in Christ. So, like, so when he says he's the Son of God, it's like the Jews go reach down to grab stones because they know what he means. He means because then he not only says that, but he obviously says me and the Father are one, and so then they're really like, they understand he's saying he's the only begotten Son. He is the inheritor of the kingdom. And so, like that, so that's what I'm saying. Like,
he was the correcting.
These are the things where people like I said. So if you don't know that, like, what parts of the Bible do you know? The parts about fire insurance, because I think that's you deny what so much of it what says. It's like, we're trying to tell you that this place is not the way they tell you it is, because they try to tell you this is it's all flesh. There's no mysteries to this place. We got it all figured out. Don't worry, though. But guess what? When you die, you go to heaven because you say you believe in Jesus. But you deny so much of the text where you're like, you believe in an all-powerful creator. But the prophets really didn't know what they were talking about when they started talking about the earth and the way the sun moves and all that kind of stuff. It's like that kind of stuff is silly. Like, it's not a science book. guys, you can't hang everything on an omnipotent creator or the way everything works and then say, yeah, but the prophets but God's prophets really didn't know what they were talking about. That stuff's a little bit weird. And I'm going to finally go here. And I was talking to Bryan before this. Bryan's probably already been here. So I went ahead and read First Enoch again. A lot of people probably only go only to the parts of the Watchers, and that's the very beginning of First Enoch, basically. I think it's interesting that it's First Enoch 6 is where they start talking about the Watchers and the sitting, just like Genesis 6. Isn't that kind of weird? It lines right up, because it does line right up. And so I was reading it, and I was like, I finally got to the point, because I was talking to the book of Jude, where it talks about angels being in chains, and the angel that left their first estate. So in the book of Jude, it goes on to quote the prophet Enoch. And Jude literally quotes from First Enoch, chapter 1, verse 9. He quotes it word for word. So what I'm trying to say right now is, I believe that there was a conspiracy to take this book out of the Bible because they wanted some people to still cling to that false view of the sons of Seth. Because if First Enoch was in the Bible, there ain't no debate on what Genesis 6 says. It's so clear. And again, it's funny because if you think about it, when do they talk about angels in chains in the Old Testament? I don't think that they do. I don't think it's mentioned that angels get chained up and they're put under the Euphrates. I don't think it talks about.
Says there is one verse that talks about the angels under the water.
Okay.
It says the dead, or it says the fallen under the water cry out.
Interesting. Well, that could also be reference to Nephilim that are kind of in the pit as well. So or
the people killed in the flood.
It's possible, but I was really starting to see where, so you have in 1 Corinthians.
It doesn't say chains though.
Yeah, but obviously, so when Peter talks about angels in chains and Jude talks about angels in chains, it's very specific, and then obviously John talks about angels in chains in Revelation. So they all three talk about it. Okay, so generally you can kind of go back into the old, when Jesus and the apostles are quoting stuff that happens in the Old Testament, you can almost always find it. You cannot find that there, but you can find that in the book of Enoch. So where are they getting it from? Okay, so when Jude quotes the prophet Enoch, he's not saying he had a special revelation to hear what he said. He's literally quoting what the book says. And so if you think about
it's good.
It's the Dead Sea Scrolls is where they found First Enoch, and I think Second Enoch. I'm not sure about the other books. I can't verify them. I got to read those again. But First Enoch they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and so they believe this was a Second Temple book. Okay, so that means obviously Second Temple period was obviously clearly when Jesus was around, when he was teaching in the temple.
They just found First Enoch in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
So obviously, there's no point where they you can see when Paul starts talking about that women should cover their hair and consider the angels. In First Enoch, it mentions that the Watchers lusted after women with long hair. That's such an odd line without that context. It's still kind of creepy.
Totally.
It's still very creepy. But so he's quoting that, and even Jesus talking about that the lake of fire is the place that's reserved for the devil and his angels. It talks about that in the book of Enoch. It doesn't talk about that in anywhere else in the Old Testament. And it's not like Jesus couldn't know something that wasn't in the Old Testament. I'm not saying that. But obviously Jesus is saying he is the word, he's the confirmation of the word. He's trying to tell you about the things that are in the word. And so so in general, Jesus is telling people the scriptures they have, and he's trying to tell them what they mean, or how they're intended to mean. And so when he brings these things up, guys, there's no chance that this is an accident. And again, so when I read First Enoch, so obviously people talk about there's contradictions maybe in Third Enoch, I'm not sure which exact book it is. I didn't find one contradiction in it. It lined up perfectly. It talks a lot about the angels. It talks about the heaven. It talks about the way this kind of world worked. It actually was talking about the circuits of the stars and the portals and everything. I mean, it's super interesting. But again,
very interesting.
What it really tries to tell you is this is how this place is the way it is. This is why we wrestle not against flesh and blood. This is the kind of stuff it's talking about. The unseen realm, as Michael Heiser talked about, that there's so much more to this place. But you go to church, and they're trying to tell you there's less. The whole world's trying to tell you there's more here now. And so like Christians don't have explanations for this when they should.
They absolutely should have stuff. But that's the thing. If you don't know and you don't read it, my people perish for lack of knowledge, the Bible says. And unfortunately, there's a lot of Christians perishing, and even more sad, other people they could be witnessing to that are perishing because you don't know, because you're literally not taking the time to learn, read, and understand. You think it's a fairy tale, you think it's a joke, and you're not learning. And that's like totally being influenced by something demonic, in my opinion, probably, because it's like, why can't you just read it? Just read it and question it. Like you're gonna call it out, and then you don't even bother to check it out. Like call it out and say it's fake, but read it first, and then you can determine.
Right? Isn't it interesting too? Like, well, I mean, I think that's the thing. So I actually just finally got this. I got this the book of the 50 books of the Apocrypha, and I'm just gonna just read it.
Love it.
And it's like, so obviously when you know like
there's some interesting stuff in there. Some of it you can read. And if you have the Holy Spirit guiding you when you read this stuff, guys, like you have to obviously know the Bible first to have a good grounding. But when you have the Holy Spirit, he'll make things pop up to you, and you'll be like, I don't know if that's right. You'll be like, that might be a little bit off right there. But you keep reading, and you're like, okay, that's I feel that in my spirit. But like God will, and those things that come up that you feel a check in your spirit, research them. Those are the things exactly that you should be researching. Those are the things that you should go, okay, this popped up, and be like, all right, I don't know if that's right. I'm going to look into that. Looking into it is what will reveal the truth to you, and you'll understand it. Either it's, maybe it could be something that was manipulated negatively. Sorry, anyways.
No, it's good. Well, it's interesting because literally I was talking about Genesis 6, and I was making little reels from the movie, and people were like trying to rebuke me for like quoting Enoch. They were talking about adding to the Bible. It's like when somebody says that you can't talk about Enoch because you're adding to the Bible, it's like, do you know how, I mean, I'll say this in the nicest way possible. You know how ignorant you sound? Because they're quoting Revelation, and Revelation talks about not adding to this book. It's not talking about Revelation. It's not talking about the binding of books together that make the Bible. Yes. I mean, like I said, really, like you're showing your level of understanding of what this is talking about. He's like saying, don't add to this prophecy. He's saying, don't add to this prophecy.
It's a prophecy, yeah.
Yeah,
because it's projecting the future, and if you add to it, you're manipulating the future. That's why it's so important that you do not add to that book. And the interesting part is it says God will add or take away years from your life if you do.
He basically says he'll remove your name from the book of life,
from the book of life.
He'll also add to the plagues. Add you to the plagues of this thing.
Yeah.
And so like.
Yeah, and so that's bad, but that's literally written there. Why do you think they wrote that there? Do you think they wrote that there because no one could add to it? Do you think he wrote that there or take from the book? Or do you think he wrote that there because he knew people would try to add or remove from it? And so he put that in there as the warning, saying, hey, look, if you do it, guess what? It ain't going to go good for you. And like it's like put in there for that reason. It wasn't the Bible wasn't even put together when he wrote Revelation.
Right.
There was no Bible. He was writing in a jail cell.
That's what I'm saying. Well, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's so crazy that like people don't understand. It's like guys, I defend the Bible all the time. I'll defend the stuff that's in it to the end. There's things that are true that are not in it. I mean, like that just this stands to reason that it's not the history of everything in the world that's true. It's the most important things that are true, so don't lose heart in what's in there. But guys, you do have to understand that, like, do you know that when they first put the 1611 King James Bible together, it had the Book of Enoch in there? Okay, so like, so the people who are KJV only saying you can't take out from the Bible, there's many old Bibles that actually have a section of the Apocrypha in it. It's almost like the people who put the Bible together weren't afraid for you to know other things that maybe were true or maybe weren't true. Like you could spit the bones out. Obviously, they have the canonized text, and they even make a section to say this is Apocrypha. But what's interesting? So a lot of times people would say we can't rely on Enoch because we know Enoch didn't write it. Okay, I agree with that. Enoch had to come from oral traditions because anything that happened before the flood pretty much had to be. Everything that's happened before the flood is pretty much oral traditions, right? And so so we don't know who wrote it, and we don't know when it was written. We know some of the oldest manuscripts were from the Dead Sea Scrolls.
But we don't know the authors of all the books in the Bible.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to get to. So we don't. So we know that those are early manuscripts. We don't know that those are the first ones. We know that they found those in the Second Temple. So those things could be really, they could have been copies of copies, and that's likely what they were. And so if you want to take Enoch out of the Bible, when you got to take the book of Job out too. Because guess what? We don't know who wrote it. We don't know when it was written. And there's some crazy stuff in the book of Job too, like as I quoted earlier. Isn't that interesting? But we're comfortable with that because it's in the Bible. You know, like, but guys, the Bible obviously is a combination of books. Like I said, it's like test the spirits. Obviously, yeah, like Bryan has said, let the Holy Spirit be your teacher. If you know if you know God, if you know God, like that's the thing. It's like we have not changed our belief in Jesus or our doctrine about these things. It's made it more real because now we can talk about it. We can talk about this world and make sense of it all. And I think that's what and I'm sure if you guys have listened to us at all, the cool thing about this is this has been a witnessing tool to us because obviously Bryan and I can specifically talk about that the things that we've learned have blown our minds. And now we get to be excited about it and tell you guys about it. So it's kind of like, so that's why it matters too, is that this is a good way, to reach the lost because people are seeking and they're searching for answers, and the Bible has them. And also books that were taken out of the Bible have answers too. And it's like,
has them.
And it really is amazing. I do think that this is possibly, in Daniel, it talks about knowledge will increase, and people it's like this lost knowledge about the things that were before. Nothing new under the sun. They continue to come back up, and now we're at a place where people are so desiring of the truth in like what our true history is, and as Christians, we've got it, and we need to be able to tell. We need to be able to tell people,
tell the truth, and give answers, and be the source that people go to, and say, hey, what does this mean? And be like, well, that's what this means. There you go, boom. And here's the truth. And here's the authority of Jesus that you're supposed to walk. Here's the power of God. Bam. Find the truth. So, yeah.
Well, I think we'll probably wrap it up on that today. It's funny. We had a couple other topics, but obviously we spent a lot of time on that. But anyways, guys, if you guys were interested in this conversation, you have not got the movie yet, please check it out. AncientAngelsMovie.com. Obviously, we put a ton of hard work into it, and obviously more things are getting revealed to us by the day. So I mean, it's exciting. So obviously, if you like what I do, you like what Bryan does, and this is the way you could support us. Obviously, and also look, I did get some new T-shirts. Do you guys see this?
I was gonna say your shirt looks great.
That's right. Jesus said there would be haters, and it's what's funny about this shirt, Bryan? Whether people love it or they hate it, it's right. It's almost like they even if they hate it, they're going to prove the shirt true. And it says on the back, it says endure to the end. It says Matthew 10:22. This is totally scriptural. Like I said, Jesus said this. Anyways, but yeah, if you want to support us, obviously the merch is going to be available soon. It's not available yet. But yeah, the movie, like I said, we're not trying to just stick our hands out and say, give us money. We're saying, hey, do you want something? We got something for you. And obviously, if you can support the ministry we got, we'd obviously appreciate it. And guys, obviously, any closing thoughts, Bryan?
That's it, man. I'm good. We got it all.
Well, anyways, again, it was great having Bryan back on the show. Obviously, my co-host, my boy. So, anyways, we're gonna close it out there. But guys, God bless you guys. Obviously, hit the links in the link tree, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Later.